Corruption, deceit, and lies are only a few things used to climb the political ladder of bodies to the top. But when a group of conspirators are fed up with the cruelty and rivers of blood, their only option is to do the most unspeakable action ever: lead a conspiracy to end such an evil reign. We're looking at the second chapter of Eiichi Kudo's Samurai Revolution trilogy, preceded by 13 Assassins, called The Great Killing. It's a 1964 action drama chambara starring Kotaro Satomi, Nami Munakata, and Ogami Ito's great rival in Lone Wolf and Cub, Minoru Oki. How does this movie stack up against the first chapter? Let's find out. This is Eiichi Kudo's The Great Killing, and I'm your host, GojiraFerret. Let's begin. Unlike 13 Assassins, the second chapter of the Samurai Revolution trilogy doesn't have much information on production. Most of the information wasn't found online, but on the DVD case and even in the beginning credits of the film. I do know, though, The Great Killing was also known as Dai Satsujin, or The Great Duel, even though there's not really any duels in this film. The screenplay would be written by Kaneo Ikegami, who wrote 13 Assassins as well. Music would be handled by Seiichi Suzuki, with Furuya Osami directing cinematography. We also get to see that the choreography for the sword fights were overseen by Tani Toshio, who would be the stunt director for Kaze no Bushi. This film would once again be produced and distributed by Toei Company, and released to Japan on June 3rd, 1964. Now that we got production, or what little of it, done, let's move on to the plot. We're not given an exact date of the events of this film, but I am able to narrow it down. As the film exclaims, it is during the fourth reign of the Tokugawa shogunate. This would be Tokugawa Iemitsu's eldest son, Ietsuna, whose time in office would be between 1651 and 1680. This puts the film during the Edo period. During the Edo period, farmers revolt against the government due to high taxes being imposed upon them. Unfortunately for the farmers, their revolt was stopped, and 1,300 of them were harshly punished. An elder known as Sakai Uta no Kami surmises that another elder, Hota Biku no Kami Masatoshi, was conspiring against the government to subvert the shogunate. Sakai, played by Ryutaro Otomo, is given authority to hunt down anyone who may be a conspirator, and sends Inspector General Hojo's men to bring them to justice, dead or alive. During this, we're introduced to one of the protagonists, Jinbo Hiyashiro, played by Satomi Kuotaro. His moment with his wife, Keo, being interrupted by one of his friends who is a conspirator, breaking into his home in hopes to escape the Inspector General's officers. During the skirmish, Jinbo is wrongfully implicated as a conspirator. Sadly, while being dragged away, Keo is cut down by an officer and left to die in the street. While being hauled away by officers, a mysterious woman commands her men to ambush the group and free the prisoners. During the attack, Jinbo escapes and finds himself being housed by a friendly owner of a gambling house, Asari Matanoshin, played by Mikijiro Hira. This is a stark contrast from the conspirators who are captured, as they are tortured and interrogated by Sakai and Hojo's men. Meanwhile, Sakai's plan is coming to fruition as he learns that Kofu Saisho, a possible heir to the shogun's throne, and Sakai's personal puppet he has been maneuvering to put into power, is considered for the position of shogun. Jinbo is confronted by the mysterious woman in the streets, introducing herself as Miss Mio, acted by Nami Munakata. She is a conspirator and tries to make Jinbo sympathetic to their cause. Initially, Jinbo is resistant until he is shown the body of his wife, Keo, still lying lifeless in the streets. Jinbo joins the cause, but for his own personal reason, revenge. We meet a Ronin turned family man and conspirator, Hoshino Tomonjo, who is hiding some of the other hunted revolutionists. Among them is the de facto leader, Okabe Jinjiro, who, under the immense pressure, is constantly drunk on sake. Okabe's true intentions are made clear when he later tries to betray the other conspirators by striking a deal with Sakai. Unfortunately, his cowardice is discovered and Jinbo attempts to execute Okabe, slicing him viciously. Okabe crawls into the streets, bleeding in an attempt to escape. Jinbo is prepared to deliver the final blow, but the sight of Hojo's officers causes the group of revolutionaries to retreat, leaving Okabe to be captured. During the execution, Miss Mia is identified by one of the officers, and Hojo commands his men to bring in the hooded woman. Mia, while being pursued, slips into a Buddhist temple, and while hiding out, she is confronted by a monk who identifies himself as a former samurai and revolutionary, Kusaka Sanosuke. Kusaka is driven by the irrational belief that he was divinely chosen to kill Sakai himself. He agrees to rejoin the group, but not before he forces relations against Miss Mia, stating that since he is chosen by heaven, he is able to do whatever he wants. Okabe regains consciousness, and in his cowardice implicates the real leader of the conspiracy, Yamaga Jingoziamon Soko, a well-respected military strategist. Sakai is aware of Yamaga's status with the shogunate and knows arresting him will not be simple, nor hold up in court. The next morning, Hojo visits Yamaga at his sword school, and the two have a civil conversation. The civility is a facade, as both men are reading between the lines and probing each other for information. In the end, both men discover each other's intentions, and Yamaga calls to have every conspirator left to evacuate the school and go into hiding. Hojo, knowing that Yamaga is indeed the lead conspirator, plans to surround the school and raid it. In a final desperate attempt, the conspirators decide not to assassinate Sakai, but as means of gaining power, Kofu Saisho. They plan an ambush on Kofu's procession on the Mito Highway, hoping that Sakai will expect a direct attack against himself. The plan is agreed upon, and the group decides to execute it. The night before, the Ronin Hoshino has his final evening with his family. As the night comes to an end, so does the lives of his wife and children, as Hoshino himself slays them. The reasons being either he believes the plan will fail and his family will be hunted afterwards, or it will succeed, but his life will end that day and his family may still be hunted by the government. No matter the reason, it sends the message that Hoshino's commitment to the cause is harder than steel. Kofu's procession deploys, and the conspirators launch their plan. But before the monk Kusaka leaves, he once again forces himself on Mia. Fed up with being pushed around and being taken advantage of, she attempts to slice Kusaka. In a fit of madness and rage, Kusaka strangles Mia to death. Stunned by his actions, Kusaka abandons Mia's body and hastily rejoins the group. While the conspirators await Kofu's arrival on the highway, Sakai and Hojo both realize they are not being targeted. The two leave by horse in hopes to intercept the ambush before it can begin. Both men are too late as the ambush is launched and Kofu's procession is splintered and confused. The remaining revolutionaries engage and begin cutting down Kofu's security force one man at a time. The fight spills into the streets as Kofu's men try running with the palanquin in hand in an attempt to escape, causing chaos to erupt. Kofu exits the palanquin and begins traversing a canal. Jinbo, full of anger and taking damage, pursues Kofu viciously. The conspirators' numbers dwindle, leaving only Jinbo and Kusaka. Bleeding and injured, yet wielding his sword now broken in half, Jinbo attempts to kill the cornered Kofu. Jinbo falls as Kofu's samurai surround and overwhelm him, cutting him down until he is unable to continue his pursuit. Kusaka, noticing he's the remaining one, panics and attempts to retreat, but is slain by Kofu's men in the dead end of an alley. With every conspirator dead and Kofu still alive, the conspirators' plan has failed. Sakai and Hojo arrive afterwards and express their sympathy to Kofu. Asari watches as the bodies of the fallen are dragged and thrown off the streets. He sees the beat and bloodied body of Jinbo. Seeing the broken katana in Jinbo's hand, Asari realizes he fought to the bitter end and pulls the broken blade from his fallen friend's hand. Asari hears laughter as he sees both Kofu and Sakai gleefully walking the streets, amused by the death of his assassins. Enraged, Asari bum rushes Kofu and begins assaulting him with Jinbo's broken sword. Kofu begins retreating into the alley with Asari close in tow. Asari avenges Jinbo's death and fatally slashes Kofu, who falls lifeless in the dirty back alley. Knowing his fate is sealed, Asari stands his ground against Kofu's men, eventually falling to their swords. Kofu's body is carried back to the main street as Sakai realizes his plans of reigning the domain have died along with Kofu. The movie ends as a hysterical Sakai is overcome by denial and begins pleading with everyone that Kofu is not dead. He assembles Kofu's men and they begin forming a procession for a dead man. It seems that cinematography made leaps and bounds since the first chapter. Osami utilized farther shots and other angles to imply certain motions, such as the shot of Jinbo's friend panicking in the hallway using a disorienting angle to convey confusion and panic. Osami also used a tactic to make the fights more intense and real. Much like today's handheld shaky cam, Osami had continuous shots done without a rig, giving the shots a shaky and frantic feel. This was a difficult feat at the time because it took two cameramen to work together as they ran headlong into fight scenes carrying a 110-pound camera. This style alone makes the cinematography very unique and immersive. Shaky cam aside, acting is another improvement as we're given better and more interesting characters. though some characters blend into the background. We are given development of some of the important characters, from Otomo's scene where his character Sakai is dumbfounded that his plan had fallen through, to Mia coming to terms that giving up her body to anyone who may join their cause was only hurting herself. Even the inner turmoil Hoshino experiences after slaying his family believing it was for their safety, and the short development of the monk Kusaka, who is nothing more than a religious fanatic, who in the end proves to be nothing more than a coward. Overall, the acting and characters were a great improvement and added depth to an otherwise standard revenge story. As stated before, action scenes are given a new twist with cinematography. Shots are interesting as they are long and continuous shots. The shaky cam makes things more intense and gritty. Its downfall does come with its choreography. This is because outside of a few handheld camera shots, a lot of the ambush is shot from afar and you see multiple men on screen fighting. This can become confusing, especially in black and white. The only defining character was Jinbo, only because he was constantly the one in pursuit of Kofu. From there, you can see swords frantically being swung at nothing, and certain characters falling face first into the dirt only to blindly swing their sword. Even some slices seem weak, as if the stuntmen were afraid to hurt their opponent, so their swings are very slow and there's no Foley to make the impact seem harder. This kind of hurts as there's only one true fight scene, which is the final showdown. With only the last part of the film being action, most of the film is setup and dialogue. Conversations are well written and executed by the writers and actors respectively. It is very natural and doesn't end up becoming exposition dumps. Most of it is actually character development, as the stakes are simple and there's no need to beat a dead horse on the villain or hero's intentions. Like I said before, that's a very interesting concept considering this is a revenge tale. Was there any music in the film? I really didn't notice, save for a few scenes. It was used well though, with the scenes of the coward Okabe drunkenly forcing himself on Mia. It's very twisted and haunting sounding, which adds to the scene's discomfort. Honestly, it seems only when poor Mia was being either defiled or attacked did the score come out. Man, poor Mia. But in the end, the movie really turns expectations upside down. Where most films have some of the protagonists survive, even the plan coming out successful, the great killing not only leaves a trail of blood and bodies, but also has our heroes fail, and only does the villain lose when an outsider filled with rage decides to finish what the heroes started. It says that no matter what, the good guys don't always succeed, and sometimes all it takes is a wild card to do what is right. Victory is only being held by a thin thread. I really enjoyed the narrative of this film, even though it's similar to its predecessor. I believe the characters, their development, and outcome was very interesting, and I put it above most revenge tales. I hope you enjoyed this review of Eiichi's second chapter of the Samurai Revolution Trilogy, The Great Killing. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and comment down below on your thoughts of this movie. If you would like to stay up to date with future content, please give Samurai Cinema a subscribe. I'm GojiraFerret, and thank you for watching.